The green-eyed, gray-skinned vampire who happens to cosplay or yearn to be the ultimate housewife who cooks and tries to be cute while doing so. It's Layna Lazar. Now, a bit about this VTuber. She is officially a blood mother. She has pointy ears, a dermal piercing, and a cross on her right eye. Being a blood mother means she has vampire-like abilities. As an example, she needs blood to survive, and without it, she will die. Her fans are called the hemoglobins, or was? Not only that, she is allergic to ultraviolet rays, has real fangs, which actually fits easily in a D&D setting. Our first step is to give her a race. In some fantasy settings, vampires are just boiled down into just, being a race, or some are called dampiers and, stuff like that. But in 3.5 D&D, vampires can realistically be almost any race, as long as it is a living creature and it survives a bite from a true vampire, or if they are created to be a true vampire, which is, a little bit of a different story. So this is actually a thing called a template that we place onto a race, which drow or even a gray elf works perfectly for this scenario. If you're worried about the character having high level adjustment, you might want to choose half vampire instead of, the full vampire, which there are a ton of different templates that all have unique abilities, and some would be good for a vampire lord. A full vampire, you can level it up like a class and even take some cool stuff like, the shadow vampire. And there are so many cool ones that are, out there, and it's really hard to do without a whole nother video. Now, for her race, I'm thinking drow. It's a level adjustment +1, which isn't too bad, and a half vampire is also a +2 level adjustment, which, adds up to a +3. Now, when we add her classes, she is officially level 4, but only has 1 level in a class. But the most interesting part of all this is, what does she actually get utility-wise? She gains damage reduction, keeps all of her precious drow abilities, which we will talk about in a tiny bit. Children of the Night, which allows her to command lesser creatures such as wolves, swarms of rats, even swarm of bats. She will also gain the Charm Gaze ability. Not only does she have the charisma, she has the all-important Blood Drain ability. It gives her temporary HP, which, affects her last ability called Blood Dependency. Now, why choose this template, which has a massive debuff? Because lore-wise, Layna legit cannot live without blood from, others. So, dude, this is lore-accurate Layna. Okay, so enough about the vampires, and now it's time for her drow heritage. Dark vision up to 120 feet, which is actually insane. Immunity to sleep, which is a normal elf trait. Spell resistance 11 plus her class level, so it gets more powerful as she levels up. Spell-like abilities once per day, which are darkness, fairy fire, and dancing lights. And then lastly, because she is a lady of the Underdark, she has the light blindness, which after exposure to daylight, she is just blinded. This definitely ties in well, since she's allergic to the sun and probably never sees it. I thought long and hard about the classes that she could possibly take, and I was actually told from a friend of mine that she once thought of herself as a cleric in early life. So in order to get all the important hard to access spells, she is going to take a variant in cleric called the Arcane Disciple Cleric. What is actually special about this? She can gain access to 1 arcane spell from either the Bard, Wizard, or Sorcerer spell list, which actually can be very handy. We want to take 7 levels of Cleric and then switch into the Prestige class called the Lurking Terror. This class, there is an ability called Deathly Power, which improves the ability DCs by 1 and makes her much harder to resist, such as the Captivating Gaze ability, and her Level Drain abilities. Then she also gains Improved Dark Vision, which improves her Dark Vision by 30, and at 3rd level, the Lurking Terror can hide in plain sight. The last class is called Soul Eater. Some of the features increases the abilities for vampire goodies. She has the Drain ability, which actually drains levels with only a touch. It is kind of debatable whether this works for natural attacks, including her Blood Drain bite, but which would kind of make sense. Some of these benefits include Soul Strength Enchantment, Radiance, Agility, Slave, and Power. All of these give you a benefit when you use your Drain ability, and you can gain multiple of these with even just one Drain, from what I understand. The best thing about Layna is doing her skills is actually super easy. 20 ranks into cooking, 20 ranks into hide, move silently, stuff like that. But also, we all know she's got those abilities like, looking like a trad housewife and giving her the world what they need most. The technique, using acting skills to pose in seductive ways, always making sure to keep your full attention. Alright, combat-wise, she has a couple pretty neat talents. There are plenty of feats a vampire like her would need. Weapon focus is just for her slam ability, and it's a must to get into a prestige class here. Then magic in the blood is a special feat that lets her choose a couple arcane spells and be able to cast them like spell-like abilities, which is actually really neat. It's not often that you could do it, and it's pretty hard to get. Third feat is called Fell Animate. This allows her to animate any corpse killed by her spells to become an undead puppet for her to control. The last two feats are a combination type called Lasting Life, then you build it into Enduring Life. This allows her to remove any negative levels from herself, and so she is actually an expert at denying the effects of death from level drain. Now, lastly, since we are a cleric, we don't have access to skills like, move silently and hide. So using the feat called Flexible Mind, it kind of makes up for that, allowing us to take class ranks at full speed instead of at half speed. Sadly, we get a Chaos Aura, which, oh well, you're chaotic, Layna. Equipment in 3.5 is absolutely crazy, and it's super important, especially for melee fighters. You need to be able to resist effects being up close and survive multiple attacks and deal the damage that you need. The Blood Claw Choker is a set item that makes it so she can spend health points to regain her spell slots. It's usually meant for sorcerers, but I'd make an exception because of, badass magic BS in play, but if that's not good enough, we also have the Gauntlets of Blood Rage, which is another set piece. This allows her to spend 5 HP per round to deal an extra 5 damage for each hit. Now, to make a badass weapon worthy of this vampiress, a +5 weapon is pretty standard for anyone who's around level 20, but adding the effects called Bloodstone, allowing her to store a vampiric touch spell in the weapon and activates when the creature is hit by Layna. But we also will add Blood Feeding enchantment, which each time she hits with this weapon, it gains a blood point. She can save up to 10 blood points, and for each one spent on an attack causes an extra 2 damage. All in all, we want her to have high charisma, dexterity, and some wisdom for casting spells. Strength to be semi-important for extra damage as well, but she has tons of ways to deal some hurt and debuff her enemies. As a cleric, she would have access to a couple spells, but many of the drain abilities are probably all she needs to be really effective. After all that, we ended up with a vampiress able to drain levels, heal herself by attacking, plus the abilities to empower herself. And I believe we made an interesting melee caster who can slowly whittle down people. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and if you want to see more of your favorite VTubers made in D&D, comment below and you might see your favorite Oshi in the next video.